This is my musical interpretation of A Rock Ode to Franz Kafka too. Helped with Aura is helping me with this one. Now this is a doozy of a song. It's actually 41 minutes long, but I think it's worth it. It's a peaceful song, and it stands out because it's also otherworldly. Emerson talked about other world. There is no other world. It is only here and now. That is the fact, he said. But I think he's wrong in that sense. Not pretty much not in any other way, because my angels tell me there's 14 afterlives that everybody goes to, depending on who they are. There's no hell too. But I asked the question when I listened to this music, A Rock Ode to Franz Kafka too. What is the present moment? Like questioning what the present moment is, what the now is. This is music completely free of revenge. It's a fantasy kind of rhapsody, and it confronts the listener. In fact, it's kind of like in a fairy style of Ariel of the Tempest, or Puck, who is also a fairy from Midsummer's Night Dream. It's kind of like mountain music in some sense, a commanding type of music, and it kind of reminds me as if it's about a good king or a good ruler. So it links up to Plato's Republic, even though I think that that's an unhappy book about the philosopher king. But since they didn't like poetry, since Plato didn't like poetry that much, I have to kind of reject that. It's an attentive and caring song. I think about Heidegger. He said, think only one thought and think it to the end. So it's a thoughtful piece of music, memorable, reminding me of St. Augustine on Virgil, his ideas about the memory too, how he uses Virgil in his book City of God. It's thought's empire over thought. Well, it's not that, but that's the line I pulled from Shelley's Triumph of Life. Actually, I think it's a different poem, but I'm gonna keep going. Thinking of it's a kind of thinking music. It gets itself a new name, a blessed name, as if Jacob, when Jacob got his name to be Israel from the wrestling angel. Why do I say that it gets a new name? Because it seems like it's in the process of getting a new name, getting a blessing. What does this music have to do with God is one of my questions. It has a lot to do about devakut, which is like a devotion, and I link it to the tree of life, but that's not the same tree as the forbidden fruit tree, which is the tree of good and the tree of knowing good and bad. It does still have to do about the now and a kind of will to power, like in the Nietzschean sense. This other world, the heaven. Emily Dickinson thought that she could not get in heaven in one of her poems, and she talked about that. But this is not in that style either. This Rock Ode to Franz Kafka. I have a line in my own poems called what deals with the empire of time. This music, I think, resembles a kind of paradise. It has attention to the paradise. And for me, whenever I think about my own experience with paradise, I think of my Merkabim experiences, my heavenly chariot rides into Hebetchesia, and I write about this in our plays, The Band Stay Friends, Hebetchesia, and a few other of our books, like President's Day. Let's see, it was 3, 4. Okay. As in terms of tragedy, actually, yeah, it's a tragedy genre laws. Let's see. Hold on, let me see here. I'm gonna skip this one, but the best part of this one is the idea of it being like close to fairies, the fairy sense. Crane talked about the obscure heaven of the Jews. Obscura as that heaven of the Jews. It's American music, and it's got an American spirit. Music to play maybe at a wedding, like Edmund Spencer in his poem the kind of music maybe that would go with prothalamion or his other poem epithalamion. It's music of the daytime, music that gains much. And I have this quote I wrote down a while back: "Gain all or none" by Winslow Homer, except that the actual Winslow Homer didn't say that, but a fictitious one, B'nai V'va. Stevens talks about the father of bleak regard. I think about this when I think about this music, who's sitting and saying no to no and yes to yes. And he says yes to no, and in saying yes, he says